let's talk about what you do have. Rocket Lab.
Yeah.
They had a tank pressure test failure. This is potentially going to set back their launch for, was it Neutron, Electron?
Neutron. Electron is the current rocket, the
I
smaller
can
rocket.
never remember.
Yeah,
Shows you how well I
Neutron.
did in science. Um, so yeah, tell us what happened. Is it going to cause delays? Is this going to be a problem?
Yeah, so obviously in any kind of a rocket program, there's so many different components. Every component has to be extremely tested and tested to extreme conditions. The tank, the pressurized tank, for which I think is the main fuel tank, although they didn't clearly say that it was the fuel tank, for the Neutron rocket was being pressurized tested, and it seems like they kind of implied that it didn't. It sort of the test failed before they pushed it to its limits, right? Because they sometimes push things to their limits just to see, like we expect it to fail. Let's see how much it can handle. But in
Right.
this case, I think they hadn't gone above the limits that they were hoping that it would be able to handle. So
Yeah, it was not an
almost
expected
certainly
failure.
it did seem like an unexpected failure. And they said they were going to sort of provide more context about it in their Q4 earnings call, which happens in February. But but fundamentally, like it doesn't change the story for me, right? Rocket Lab is very strong company that has a very bright future. And even if there's like a couple month delay because for Neutron because of some test failure, it doesn't change anything. So I didn't like make any moves as a result of that test failure. But I was asked, why not sell some and just wait until the dust settles and then buy it back or whatever at a
Mhm.
lower price. And my answer to that question was that these things are so unpredictable that I have no idea. So I put together actually another chart. So this is the price chart for the past week for Rocket Lab, and this is where the test failure happened. This is last Wednesday when we were doing the show. I think their test failure happened on Wednesday. So Wednesday's close was unaffected by the test failure. The next day, it opened down something like 10%. But by the end of the day, it had already recovered. So this is the unpredictability of the market. You have no idea what the market is going to do just because of a test failure. And in fact, the following day, on Friday, it went up and made I don't think this is new all-time highs, but it reached close to its all-time highs. And then the weekend happened, or actually, this was the end of day two. So this was sort of like midday, second day. End of day two, it had already sort of like closed at a higher price than when the test failure had happened. Um, but then the weekend happened, and then on Monday, it opened down pretty significantly and went down as much as 10%. So this is the end of Monday. And then yesterday and today, it has pretty much recovered and is higher than, again, when the test failure happened. So this just basically goes to show you the unpredictability of these things and that, like, you know, I'm not a short term investor. I'm not going to buy and sell based on how it potentially moves in a particular few moments because of a test failure or even a month or two delay. If they came out and said Neutron is getting pushed back to 2027 for some reason, that would be a reasonable, like reason to be like concerned that, okay, well, wait a second. These guys have been saying for a long time that it was going to happen in second half of 2025 and then the first half of 2026. And now if they're pushing it back by a year at the beginning of the year in 2026, then we're in trouble. So that would be one thing, which they're not doing. And then the second thing that I love about Rocket Lab is that 70% of their business is not even their launch business. 70% of their business comes from satellites and satellite technologies, which is growing super fast. So I want to wait until their quarterly report to see, before I do anything, to see, like uh, how do they do, first of all, and what do they predict? Because they're getting contracts left and right that are adding to their backlog. So Rocket Lab continues to be a company that I'm excited about, and don't expect to do any moves in the short term unless it hits new all-time highs. I might trim a little bit. That's always a sort of like a de-risking strategy of mine. Uh, but yeah.
And what's your expectation when they finally do a Neutron launch? Is it going to be similar to SpaceX, where it's probably going to have some sort of failure then too, but that's part of the process? Or are you expecting a successful first flight?
That's a great question. And what's cool about that is that Peter Beck has already answered that question. So Elon also answered that question about Starship, which he set out the expectation that, hey, we're going to fly this thing as often as possible and fail quickly and iterate fast and learn as we go. So Elon set the expectation that Starship was going to have all these blowups happen and it's going to be spectacular. Just, like
And
come
it
along
was.
for the ride. And it has had multiple blowups, but I feel like the media sort of misses these details.
Yes,
So the,
totally. Well,
the
actually, I don't even think they missed the details. I think they full know that, like, this is supposed to happen, and then they're, like, just,
yeah,
twisting the
it's
news.
It's
Um,
hard to tell if they're incompetent or there's a conspiracy going on. but
yeah.
but in Peter Beck's by the way, Steve Jobs has a great quote. Sidetrack here, but uh, his quote was something to the effect of, "It's hard to tell the difference between incompetence and conspiracy, but usually it's incompetence." Anyway, uh, but going back to Neutron and Peter Beck, he set the expectation that he fully expects the very first test launch of Neutron to actually make orbit. And the second launch of Neutron is expected to actually take satellites to orbit. So um, this is not a situation where Rocket Lab expects to have two or three or four failures. If they have a failed first test launch, I think that would be a somewhat of a setback and not a good thing. So, the stock is a high risk stock. So don't get me wrong, but like I'm in this thing for the long term, and I de-risk by when it hits new highs. I'm de-risking a little bit at a time, but uh, in the long term, if we fast forward 5 years from now, Rocket Lab is in a fantastic shape. 10 years from now, it's in an incredible shape. So that's the perspective I always try to keep on it.
This reminds me a lot of releasing software as we do, every week. When we strive for perfection, it could delay the release of the
Right.
software as opposed to just kind of releasing quickly and fixing quickly. Do you think by Rocket Lab striving for a perfect first launch that it's going to significantly delay that launch and there's potentially more failures on ground ahead?
My style is probably more aligned with Elon's, where it's like let's fail frequently and learn and iterate and move fast. But uh, with Rocket Lab, it sort of might not have the same luxury, or may not have had the same luxury of being able to fail a bunch of times because of financial constraints when
Mhm.
they were starting the Neutron program. So this company just 2 years ago, when the Neutron program was already well underway, was only a $2 billion company. Don't forget, today it's over a $40 billion company market cap. And if it wanted to raise another billion, it would be only a 2.5% um, dilution for the entire shareholder base. Whereas if it raised $1 billion 2 years ago, it would have been a 40-50% dilution for the shareholder base. So it didn't have the luxury of being able to iterate quickly and failing frequently as a way to sort of accelerate its timeline. And therefore, they had to sort of like re, uh, do it Peter Beck style, which is that we're not going to produce something that doesn't work right off the bat.